Representative Holloway, members of the committee. I want to thank you for inviting us here today, giving me the opportunity to speak for teachers and students about the importance of a sound education policy. And as a dad who wants what's best for his son, it's a rare opportunity, but I do hope it's one that's going to become more familiar. This discussion of Common Core is challenging because it has so many facets, and all of them have to be considered because what we're doing is questioning the culture of American education. I'd like to begin by sharing with you the voice of the 7,000 teachers who are members of the professional educators of North Carolina. In June of 2013 and again in February of 2014, PENC presented a thoughtful survey that was focused on familiarity with the standards, effectiveness and quality of training, availability of resources, value as a learning tool, and overall confidence in North Carolina's ability to successfully implement those standards. In essence, what we learned was that the majority of our members indicated that not only do they feel unprepared to teach the standards, with 80% of them citing primarily average to low quality training, and also lack of resources, but they don't feel confident that North Carolina is adequately prepared to implement those standards. 95% said we are either moderately or not prepared at all to implement those standards in this state. So as a result, about 90% of all teachers responded they don't feel that students are prepared to master those standards. And that's where we really have to find our most importance, is how well prepared are our students going to be to master these standards. Now, despite we're pointing towards what seemed to be a clear opposition to the standards, we asked a simple question: should we continue to implement those standards? And the answers were really surprisingly neutral, that almost leaned to positive. But what they wanted was specific and reasonable changes that focused on teacher involvement at every step, equal access to resources for all students, and most importantly, an end to bad tests. My perspective as a classroom teacher is a little bit different because I've never taught under Common Core, and I've done that by personal design. For 14 years, I taught middle school social studies. And I was allowed to fill my class with rigorous lessons that were based on human development through a clear and coherent understanding of the lessons of the past and how they shape our present and eventually will drive the future. Because I had no standardized test, I was given that thing that very few teachers are allowed, and that's autonomy. The freedom to teach the curriculum in a meaningful way that engaged my students as contributors to the process of self-discovery and that made them feel the classroom was centered around their individual needs led them to have such skills as adaptability, perseverance, teamwork, and creativity, essentially because I was told what to teach and not how to teach it. My students, because of that, benefited their tested areas because they understood the process of learning and could apply that standardized knowledge in meaningful ways. They gained the ability to see through A, B, C, D choices. When Common Core started to creep into my social studies classroom and took time away because I had to help them prepare for standardized tests in other subjects, I realized that I needed a different avenue of teaching and learning. Fortunately for me, Burke County has put a big investment into an organization called Project Lead the Way, and I found my home in a program that allows me to produce innovation-ready leaders because I'm among the best trained and highly supported teachers in North Carolina. I have very intense standards, but no tests. My autonomy is my accountability. I am solely responsible for how I teach my classes. My effectiveness is measured in nurturing an understanding of critical thinking and problem solving, and fostering an interest in gaining the STEM skills necessary to change the world in which my students live. And then I want them to come back to Burke County, and I want them to make Burke County better. And that's going to be the true measure of my value, not the ABCD answer that they put on the test. Common standards are good for a state, but what they have to do is clarify the needs of the people and direct education in a manner that meets those specific needs. This is why I think the 10th Amendment is fundamental to education. Education has to be immediately actionable and personally relevant. What happened to Common Core was this perfect storm of false accountability in exchange for relief from very difficult economic times. In North Carolina, we were already reeling from the impact of No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top. Common Core was supposed to be this force that was going to calm the storm and make standards more rigorous and relevant to the 21st century. And it was going to lead education in a direction of coherence and clarity. Unfortunately, what we did was turn standards into a very rigid curriculum when we unpacked them, set them to a pacing guide, cut funding for training and materials, and directly linked student gains and teacher effectiveness to multiple choice tests that kill creativity. They do not promote comprehensive understanding. Test fatigue has destroyed a love for learning and teaching. Students have been used as pawns in a game of numbers with tests that are not tied to truly intelligent goals. Unfortunately, teacher input has been scarce. Field testing of Common Core was forsaken for speed, poverty and social conditions were ignored, and we began conducting an experiment on children with little foresight as to potential outcomes. Teachers were once trusted to craft meaningful lessons that rewarded individual talents of their students. And now often, teachers tell me that they feel little more than program facilitators or testing proctors. It should come as a little surprise that we aren't buying in. I believe that a relevant and comprehensive set of standards that includes teachers and its development, supported by high-quality training and equal resources for all students, would be widely supported. If a test is necessary, it should be a smart one, graded by humans, and in no way attached to the worth of the student or to the value of the teacher. As a public school teacher, obviously I have to follow my money at home pretty closely. So I think it's important to keep an eye on it in my profession and as a taxpayer as well. I think we have to remember that in no way should public education ever be viewed as a source of corporate revenue. Yet when we trace the footsteps of influence, they lead to a few groups and companies who are looking to create earnings from our vulnerabilities. If we don't find meaningful ways to challenge and properly assess our kids, without focusing our already lean sources on scripted curriculums and tests pushed by for-profit companies, those opportunists will come into our state, and they will take over. I think transparency and true intent is important to all North Carolinians, not just teachers, when it comes to sound education policy. Finally, I'd like to speak as a dad. My son Miles is in 2nd grade. He loves school, and he does very well academically, and he better because his mom's a teacher too. He's also very creative, energetic, and emotional. In 3rd grade, a choice is going to be made for him. Achievement over enjoyment. Now, I don't have experience in elementary education, but the dad in me worries that he's not going to be ready for what's expected of him, and his creative growth is going to suffer. What I fear the most is that he won't connect learning to enjoyment. He's lucky, though. He's got a lot of support at home. A lot of the kids in his class, they don't have that same support, and I sure do hope their teacher's a superhero. Whatever decisions are made as a result of what you hear today, I would ask that you craft a long-term plan that allows teachers, parents, and the community to have stability in education, an investment in the process, and whatever it is, it should be beneficial to the needs of North Carolina, and it should support the growth of our students. Thank you.